Okay, and I'm sure you've seen J.D. Vance's comments, the Vice President of the United States, seeming to suggest that we're just a random country that hasn't fought a war in 30, 40 years. Surely that is a massive insult to those who lost their lives in Afghanistan and Iraq.
J.D. Vance is wrong. Wrong. For 20 years in Afghanistan, pro rata, our size against America's, we spent the same amount of money, we put the same number of men and women in, and we suffered the same losses. We stood by America all through those 20 years, putting in exactly the same contribution. And all right, they may be 6 times bigger, but we did our bit. So on this one, JD is wrong.
And here's the thing, when you would talk to the Biden administration officials in private, it's another example of a terrible situation the Biden admin left the Trump administration. When you ask them what's the plan, okay, we're going to spend tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars in Ukraine. What is your plan? And they would honestly tell you, well, we're just going to send them weapons for as long as we can and hope eventually they can turn the tide. Hope is not a strategy. Throwing money and ammunition at a terrible conflict, that is not a strategy. The only guy in town with a strategy is the President of the United States, and everybody needs to follow his lead.
What scares me is Zelensky, when he says it's going to go on for years, how many more lives are going to be lost? He's not going to have a country to save at the end of that. The minerals deal would have provided the monies to rebuild their country and a strong U.S. presence and maybe European troops as well.
And this is an important part of it. The president knows that, look, if you want real security guarantees, if you want to actually ensure that Vladimir Putin does not invade Ukraine again, the very best security guarantee is to give Americans economic upside in the future of Ukraine. That is a way better security guarantee than 20,000 troops from some random country that hasn't fought a war in 30 or 40 years. The security guarantee and also the economic guarantee for Ukraine is to rebuild the country and ensure that America has a long-term interest. You're not going to do that if you come to the Oval Office, insult the president, and refuse to follow his plan for peace.
J.D. Vance, once hailed as a rising star of American conservatism, has now fallen into the very arrogance and ignorance he once claimed to oppose. His words on Fox News were not just a casual slight. They were a blatant betrayal of the allies who have stood shoulder to shoulder with America for decades. From Afghanistan to Iraq, from battlefields soaked in blood to the trenches of loyalty and sacrifice. When he spoke of random countries that haven't fought a war in 30 or 40 years, had he forgotten the British soldiers who laid down their lives in the harsh terrains of the Middle East, fighting side by side with their American counterpart? Had he erased from his mind the reality that on every front British blood was shed no less than American? Figures like J.D. Vance, smug in television studios, passing judgment with blind arrogance, will never grasp the true meaning of alliance, of honor, of the promises written in blood on the battlefield. But his insult is not just a personal blunder. It is a symptom of a deeper disease within the populist rhetoric he peddles. He does not merely disregard allies. He disregards history, a history in which Britain has never wavered when freedom was at stake, a history in which no American victory has been won without the shadows of those who fought beside them from across the Atlantic. J.D. Vance's remarks were not merely thoughtless. They were a stain on America's honor. A great nation does not forget those who have fought for it. A great nation does not turn its back on its allies when they deserve recognition. A great nation does not allow someone as short-sighted as J.D. Vance to be its voice on the world stage.
I think J.D. Vance is far cleverer, far more wily and far more knowledgeable than Donald Trump is, and he knows exactly what he's doing, and he should be ashamed of himself. Also, by the way, in that interview on Fox, he was very dismissive of the European leaders, but he was also very dismissive of, some 20,000 peacekeeping forces from Europe and from France and Britain that helped us in Afghanistan. Are you kidding me, mate? You invoked Article 5, the only time it's ever been invoked, the NATO treaty, one for all, after the Twin Towers 9/11 attacks, and we joined your forces in Afghanistan. Thousands of European soldiers died and were maimed on the battlefields of Afghanistan to fight your war. Don't you dare dare insult our troops and the sacrifice our troops and indeed the families have made to help protect US. At the time we were like, it was protecting US and the West because our future lies together. I think that dismissive attitude towards Europe, I think they're going to rue the day. I think one good thing that comes out of this is this, finally in the last few weeks, this wake-up call about the need for there to be proper, serious European defences rebuilt again. And the countries that don't want to play along with that, well, that's fine. But you know what, then you don't get protected by NATO anymore. We are going to have to protect our allies. And I don't even think right now NATO forces would protect a NATO member invaded. If I were the Baltic states right now, I would be getting very, very worried.
Vance, with astonishing arrogance and ignorance, has uttered words that not only insult Britain but also dishonour all the soldiers who have fallen in the name of freedom. Soldiers who fought in wars initiated and led by the United States, wars where America called on its allies to stand by its side. When he described the UK as a random country that hasn't fought a war in 30 years, he did not just distort history. He betrayed the memory of those who have served, fought, and died for the very values America claims to uphold. Julia Hartley, brewer, one of Britain's most outspoken journalists, wasted no time in exposing the sheer stupidity and disgrace of his statement. You invoked Article 5 of NATO. We joined your forces in Afghanistan. Thousands of European soldiers died. Don't you dare insult our troops. Her words were not merely personal outrage. They echoed the sentiments of millions of Britons, people whose nation has never shied away from war when duty called, who stood by America when it invoked Article 5 of NATO after 9/11, who sent their troops to Afghanistan, willing to share the same fate as American soldiers on dangerous battlefields. Thousands of European soldiers, including Britain's finest men and women, lost their lives in a war that was not their own, but one they fought in good faith, believing in an alliance, in an oath of honor. Yet now, Vance, a politician who has never set foot on a battlefield, dismisses all that sacrifice as if it never existed. His words are not just ignorant, they are shameful. An American politician may not know every detail of Britain's military history, but Vance's lack of awareness goes beyond mere ignorance. It is a willful disregard for the truth. If he had even a basic understanding of history and a shred of respect, he would know that Britain has been involved in numerous conflicts over the past 3 decades, from Iraq and Afghanistan to Syria and peacekeeping missions across the world. The UK's contributions cannot simply be erased by the reckless words of a man who is unfit to judge those who have bled and died on the battlefield. Vance, sitting comfortably in his office, likely has no understanding of the horrors of war, of what it means for a soldier to leave their family behind, to pick up a weapon, and to risk their life for an idea. Yet, he has the audacity to insult those who have faced death firsthand, those who have fought and fallen in service to their allies. This is not just ignorance, it is the height of ingratitude. Julia Hartley. Brewer was right. Don't you dare insult our troops. A great nation does not forget those who have fought for it. A great nation does not turn its back on its allies when they deserve recognition. And a great nation certainly does not allow someone like Vance to be its voice on the world stage. If he truly wants to defend America's interests, the first thing he should learn is to respect those who have stood by the United States in its darkest moments. Otherwise, he is nothing more than a coward hiding behind a microphone, passing judgment on wars he never had the courage to fight in.